Hello, my friend, and welcome to a spontaneous satsang that I felt called to give today, to share today. And this is something that's difficult to put into words, to say the least, but I'll do my best to try. It feels like something that wants to come forth, to be expressed, to share. And that is when the sense of a separate person, a separate self, dissolves, what is left is impossible to really describe or talk about. It's beyond all words. I felt like Nisargadatta to this experience that I am that. I am that, this infinite and eternal. But when that thought arose, this said, no, you can't say that either. Because this doesn't have an I. It doesn't have an I am. It doesn't have anything that we can describe in words. So to say, I am that, it's not accurate. Because this doesn't have an I. It doesn't have an identity. It doesn't have a separate self, really. It's beyond all of that. Absolutely, completely beyond all of that. Beyond anything that we can think or describe. We use the words infinite and eternal or divine or God or things like that as pointers to point to something that's beyond all words. And yet, what can be described is from this place to describe this vehicle, this body-mind, to look at this vehicle from this place. And that, there are descriptions for this. I can describe it. It's also highly complex, but there are ways to describe it where I can't describe what is beyond this, what I experience. I cannot describe this, although I do experience it. I can't describe it, but I can describe this body-mind, this vehicle, this channel of this. And one of the ways to describe this, the body-mind, as you also have a body-mind, is as pure energy. Not matter at all, but absolutely pure energy. And another way I can describe it, which is just as valid, is as a material object, this incredible biological, chemical, material form and structure, this miraculous body-mind that self-healing and over thousands and thousands of years of evolution has arisen to be something that can sense, perceive, think, and feel. It's a miracle. And the feeling that this has for that is absolute love. Absolute unconditional love. Just as it has for you. Absolute unconditional love. That's really all it can say about it. It's just loves it to pieces. Absolutely adores it. This incredible miracle. And in addition to it being able to feel and sense and think, it can also experience this that is beyond all words and thoughts. That's even a miracle on top of the ordinary miracle that it is. That it can actually experience this that's beyond it. That's far, far beyond it. And how does it see the ego and the thought structures that are believed and the sense of a separate self, the ego self? How does it see this? The same, absolute, unconditional love. But it also sees what it is. It sees its absolute ignorance, its complete illusion, its conditioned nature, how it's been programmed to believe lies and things that aren't true and create its own suffering. It sees that completely. But it doesn't matter, because it still only perceives it with absolute love. That's really how it sees everything. Absolute, unconditional love. It doesn't seem to be able to see anything in any other way. Its very nature is this absolute, unconditional love. So although we cannot describe what this is, we can point and say the divine, God, the universe, whatever we want to call it, the self, the spiritual heart. We can use whatever words we want to point to this, but we cannot describe it. Nobody can. We have to let all our thoughts go and let it just be as it is. And that's how we experience it fully, when we let it tell us what it is. And we listen and pay attention. And when I, thought, well, maybe I can say, okay, this is what I have now. And it said, no, you can't say that, because it has no I. You cannot make an identity out of this. You cannot limit it into the form. You need to limit it in order to have an identity. In order to have an identity, you have to limit to a thought, to some kind of something that you say, this is what I am, as opposed to something else. And this you can't say that about. Because everything is this. Everything. Everything. Throughout the entire universe, everything is this. This holds everything. And another interesting thing is recently I'm connected with some of these people that you see behind me in a way, and some of these people are no longer living, but I'm very, very much connected to them in this way that is also maybe impossible to understand. Ramana Maharshi is one who's had been guiding me recently. I think he died in the 1950s. But he's as alive to me as he ever was. And he guides me, directs me in ways. And many others do as well. Because this contains all of that. All these beings that have lived and are alive. You, me. Every being is contained in this. This is the source of all of it. So why shouldn't other aspects of this be able to communicate through me? Well, of course it can. But I don't get hung up about this or that being. Because this container, this source of all of it, is always behind this. That's what I was always drawn to that, the source of it. Not any representative, not any, enlightened being or guru or master. Yes, they're wonderful, wonderful, and so precious to our earth and our species, our consciousness, so necessary for this. And yet they're all part of this whole. And the whole, to me, is the most important thing. That's what I've always surrendered to and gone back to the whole, the source, the container. And all of these are aspects. Like the sun has rays. These are rays of the sun. Wonderful, wonderful rays. Just as you are. Just as I am. this body-mind, which is such a wonderful vehicle for this, that it can experience this. In this limited body-mind, it can experience what is so far beyond it. It can feel it, sense it, feel this enormous energy flowing through it. I mean, is that a miracle or what? And yet, I don't identify with the body-mind as me. And because I don't, I can see it clearly. I can see the ignorance of thoughts, the ignorance of the sense of I, of an ego. The distractions of thoughts that pull me away from this that is beyond all thought. Beyond every thought that could ever be. The mind is not meant to understand this. And the more we try to, or the more we think we have, to talk about ignorance, it distracts us, it limits us. Because this is beyond that. When we surrender to this, oh, good, yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful when these teachers can speak to you and through you. How? I don't know. I mean, Ramana, I'll tell you a little story about Ramana, how this happened. I've always loved Ramana and have a picture of him that's kind of guided me as well. And many people have experienced this picture of Ramana. There's some great transmission power in this, and I have this picture, and daily it kind of guides me. But what really happened was a guy came to see me, and he deeply wanted to wake up. So much so that he quit his job, and his wife said she would support him in his effort to wake up. A wonderful wife. So he came here. She found me and told him, come up here and see Peter, and he did. And we had this incredible experience. Just, I don't know, it wasn't more than half an hour or so. He completely woke up. Went from 0 to 100, amazing. And the reason this happened and how this happened was we were sitting doing what I usually do with people, guiding them and opening them and doing guided meditation. And at some point, this very clear voice in my head said, stop, you've done enough. You've opened the door. We'll take it from here. And I listen to these things. I pay attention to everything, and I don't resist anything that comes. So I thought, well, okay then, fine. So I just stopped talking and just looked into his eyes for maybe, I don't know, I didn't time it, but probably 10 or 15 minutes. We just sat there looking at each other. And then he just, he like broke down. He just started crying and laughing at the same time and saying like, there's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can say, which is what I say about this. And he was feeling it. He was experiencing it. He had this same experience. And it's the first time he had it, so it completely blew his mind. And he kind of crawled across the floor and hugged my legs. And I sort of raised him up to sit next to me. And he said, I was looking at you, and the reason I was staring at you like this is because you became Ramana. You disappeared, and you weren't there. Ramana was sitting there looking at me. Isn't that amazing? He had this deep connection with Ramana. And because of his deep connection with Ramana, which is more than he even realized, Ramana helped him wake up. But through this vehicle here, this body-mind. And ever since then, that's when Ramana has been guiding me often. And often what he guides me with is, as simply says, be quiet, which is good advice for me sometimes. But this transmission does come through very much in silence. It does come through very, very much in silence, which is what Ramana often said in his teaching, that the best teaching is in silence. And this is, what happened there. So I'm grateful that Ramana comes through in this way. It's wonderful. But it's still only one aspect of the totality. It's all the totality. Every teacher, you, me, a bird, a tree, the planet itself, the universe, it's all aspects of this one totality. And that's why we can't say anything about it, because it includes everything. What could you say? There's a lot you don't know that's included in this. You don't know about the furthest star systems and things, and yet that's all included in this. The wisdom of this is beyond anything we can imagine. And yet somehow, in this body-mind, we can experience it. And transmissions that come through me are this. And this is also you. This is also available to you, in you, to experience this same thing. Of course it is. How can it not be? This is how our mind gets in the way, because it tells us, has reasons why it can't be, or why it shouldn't be, or don't even think about that. It gets in the way of what is. So when we let go of our thoughts completely and don't let them interfere, there's this. There's this. And the more we don't let them interfere, the more we don't try and figure it out, the more we accept that it's beyond anything that we can know mentally. And yet there is a far deeper and greater knowing that comes in our direct experience, our direct feeling, our direct being of this. So I cannot say that I am this, because I and am are not in the vocabulary of the infinite, of truth. But I can say being. I can say it is. That's true. It is. And we need to be fine with that and just open to it. Just continually let that reveal to you what this beingness actually is. And it will. Thank you, my friend. I hope this was useful. This is what guided me to do it. I don't make any decisions here on my own. I let this speak and guide my life. I have been doing this for years, and it's wonderful. I mean, it's beyond anything that I can really even say, but it always guides me in the most perfect way. So this too, the spontaneous satsang, is also like that. And I know that it's reached some of you in the way that it's intended. Thank you, my friend.